Many times throughout history, an idea or invention is born that, though small, reshapes the fabric of human history. Each of these events is known as a singularity. Modern discoveries are like this, including the discovery of atomic energy, Maxwell's equations resulting in the invention of radio. By the way, your phone is nothing but a two-way radio. And the discovery of germ theory giving rise to modern medicine, food processing, and sanitation. Many technologists believe that the next big singularity to occur will be with the advancement of artificial intelligence. The idea is that once we invent a self-improving, super intelligent machine, such a machine would be able to improve on itself indefinitely, resulting in what is known as an intelligence explosion. The result would be that human intelligence would eventually become obsolete or would need to be enhanced by the artificial intelligence we created. What is rarely, if ever, considered is the possibility that in the not too distant future, another type of superintelligence might come to shape the future of humanity. This intelligence is visible everywhere we look, from the complexity of living things to the structure of the universe. But the most obvious sign of this intelligence at work is in our own consciousness. Materialistic science assumes that all of the beauty and complexity around us is the result of dead, random processes. But a new form of consciousness is emerging in humanity that reveals an entirely different picture. Research confirms that this new form of consciousness brings a human being into direct contact with the intelligence behind the universe. It is an experience so staggering, so overwhelming, and so ecstatic that no earthly object or experience can compare to it. We call this experience higher consciousness. What our research shows is that there are varying levels of spiritual experience. Many of us have had spiritual experiences of bliss, joy, feeling an intelligence behind the universe, energies, lights, and the like. Higher consciousness has many things in common with these experiences. On the other hand, there is a lot that differentiates higher consciousness from other types of spiritual experience. I'm going to bring up a diagram here to show you. That's based on some of our research. Here's a diagram showing various intensities of spiritual experiences from the data that we've gathered. A computer algorithm has gone through all of the collected data and revealed a few distinct groups. From lower left to upper right, these groups represent increasing levels of intensity of the experience, with experiences closer to higher consciousness at the upper right, indicating the intensity of these experiences. You can see that there's a couple different groupings here, and that experiences related to higher consciousness are of significantly higher intensity. Now, the experience of higher consciousness is a spiritual experience of a total transformation, not only of the observer's personality, but the basic texture and consistency of their consciousness. Now, this last part is the most difficult to understand, since without the actual experience of higher consciousness, there is no point of reference for a normal person. So the next time someone uses the term enlightenment to describe their state of consciousness, know that what they're really trying to say is that they've had a spiritual experience. What we mean when we say enlightenment is higher consciousness. Gopi Krishna describes the experience of consciousness this way. He says, "Then consciousness a wondrous aspect wears, so lofty and sublime that all our fears and doubts about ourselves dissolve at once, as if illumined by 100 suns. Of knowledge to be assured, the vision seen is that which will be, is, and ever has been. The source eternal of all that is known, the world of that too by which it is shown, the mind and process by which this is done, the whole scheme of creation in but one. In this amazing radiant presence, all the staggering worlds which awe and enthrall become a ghostly shadow seen at night, a far-off melting cloud in sunshine bright, while mind with ego vastly whittled down in mute astonishment sees itself drown into one all-enfolding life sublime, only pure consciousness, devoid of time and space, one all-embracing world of love, and joy not found on earth or heaven above. What our research is showing is that this type of experience is the peak experience described in every religion, every major culture, and every spiritual tradition. The hypothesis is that this experience is an accelerated, evolutionary, psychospiritual, biological process that can be demonstrated by science. The question is, how do we each accelerate and enhance our own evolutionary process? How can we make a smooth transition as a species into a higher dimension of consciousness? Thousands of years ago, in places like India, Egypt, and China, higher consciousness and the methods to achieve it were studied and practiced. Societies were molded to help facilitate the cultivation of higher consciousness, and the rate at which people were able to achieve higher consciousness skyrocketed. These cultures did so without modern mathematics, statistics, the internet, and a global humanity able to reach across the planet in seconds. However, after some time, these societies began to decline. Whether the decline was due to abundance giving way to greed, doctrine giving way to dogmatism, or simply by nature's decree, this knowledge of how to cultivate higher consciousness was, for the most part, lost. Vestiges of it now remain in the great spiritual traditions of the world. These are perhaps the greatest historical singularities that have ever occurred, but have since laid buried. Now humanity has an opportunity to understand this process of achieving higher consciousness, not only from a religious standpoint, but to finally reconcile our understanding of the physical world with our spirituality. Using the methods of science, our next phase of research will shed light into two major areas: spiritual practices and life modifications, areas necessary to achieve higher consciousness. However, life modifications require more than just personal choices. They require reform in every area of human activity, from our economic and political systems to education, health, and the environment. You've heard views today from luminaries in many of these areas. The question now is, what environment does humanity need to live in higher consciousness? Our preliminary research indicates that, number one, belief systems, and two, time for self-care are two essential components. However, right now in the world, we see millions of people falling prey to cult-like belief systems, relying on fictitious evidence, and falling prey to powerful, possibly state-driven psychological operations known as psyops, targeting social media and message boards. What we see indicated in the data that we've gathered is that belief systems around the inherent goodness of people and the world, equality, unity, compassion towards the downtrodden, etc., are strong predictors of higher consciousness. Social media and some world leaders are working hard to convince people to adopt belief systems to the contrary. What needs to be understood is that the path to higher consciousness involves the clearing and purification of our belief systems, trending towards those compassionate ideals framed and expounded by the founders of all religions at their core. There is a movement of people, a powerful movement of people, who want to discover the truth for themselves. For those interested in achieving higher consciousness and learning higher truths about themselves and the universe, self-care is absolutely necessary. But in the world that we live in today, this can be quite challenging. Did you know that our hunter-gatherer ancestors, historically and even today, worked only a few hours a day, about 20 hours a week? Contrary to popular belief, these cultures had life expectancies of around 70 years. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, for example, you could expect to live around 30 years, and that's true. But in this day and age, we've given up our lives to a corporate economic system that neither knows nor cares about the needs of the evolving human brain. It is a system completely uninformed of the spiritual and evolutionary treasure in store for us. As our research continues to uncover more about what is needed for the human brain to evolve properly, and as this phenomenon becomes more and more established by science, a new body of knowledge is beginning to emerge. How that knowledge is spread among the masses and how it transforms society will be up to us and the sons and daughters of humanity. The goal for each of us is to begin engaging in this process of historical singularity transformation from wherever we might stand. The research of the Emerging Sciences Foundation is designed to reveal the intricacies of this process from a behavioral and lifestyle perspective, but also by analyzing the environments, belief systems that we all live in. Many people are convinced that they know the course and direction of human life, whether it be from political standpoint, economic, education, or even just basic living. And they'll be more than happy to instruct you, no matter how destructive or misguided their views might be. I submit that we are almost completely in the dark about our evolutionary needs from the most basic level. The proof is the near complete absence of truly enlightened men and women established permanently in higher consciousness. What is needed is a continuous, sustained effort to understand these conditions. Did you know that when most historical singularities occur, most people in the society do not sense that a singularity has occurred or is occurring? As these singularities occur, there is an unpredictable reorganization of society around a technological invention or an idea. For example, from the first reliable timekeeping devices, let's say around 1,000 years ago, the world now runs on the clock, even this conference event. The rediscovery of higher consciousness and the discovery of the Kundalini biological mechanism, I would argue, is the next major historical singularity in store for humanity, a small event that will shape the future direction of humankind. To set this singularity in motion will require your help. We're now beginning weekly meditation sessions based on our research. This is only the beginning of a much larger effort to understand the conditions necessary to cultivate higher consciousness. Once this research is firmly established on scientific footing, the singularity will begin unfolding. And perhaps just like singularities before it, will shape the future of humanity, perhaps indefinitely. Now, all of this work is completely on a volunteer basis, including the contributions from members of our board, our speakers today, and everyone else who is involved. As much as I would like it to be my full-time occupation, all of the research, events, programming, and organization required to move things forward, I am still a full-time father, husband, and corporate worker. Your involvement, donations, support is critical to helping move things forward. As a next step, we're going to continue developing our meditation program and creating an online platform to help facilitate our research, experiments, and interactions between participants and group members. We're going to continue compiling research and sharing it freely with the world. 2020 has been a year of shaking up old paradigms, a year that has forced us to reevaluate the way we live our daily lives and the way that we relate to others. Although these events have been disruptive from our standpoint, our ability to change the world that we live in, change how we live today for the well-being of future generations, will determine the course and direction of our future. Whether we create a world of poverty, inequality, division, hatred, or create a world in harmony with the laws that govern our evolution toward higher consciousness, future generations will likely look back on today's day and age and marvel at the leaders we chose, the decisions we made, and our contributions to the science of the soul, the science of Kundalini. Thank you.